Welcome back to BTC Prague. We are broadcasting the starting block live here at the event. We're starting the afternoon session. We've got some great interviews lined up, starting off with a Bitcoiner most of you at home have probably listened to, Stefan Livera. Stefan, it's great to finally sit down and chat to you. I've seen you from afar at quite a few Bitcoin conferences, but we've never actually had a chance to sit down across from each other on the mic.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, man. For those out there that don't know you, tell us your Bitcoin story, how you got into the industry and this wonderful journey.
I came in from more like the libertarian, anti-fiat money, anti-central banking angle. I was kind of into Austrian economics, coming from that libertarian angle, and so I was just. I was just struck by Bitcoin, right? Like a lot of people, obviously, like most people, the first time you hear about it, you kind of disregard it, and then later, oh, whoa, this is real. Like, this is amazing. Like, this is actually going to change the world. And so I've been, shouting from the rooftops ever since. I started my podcast in 2018, but, I was around a little bit earlier than that. And then, nowadays, I guess that's the main thing I'm known for. And so now I see it as my unpaid, job, is to just promote Bitcoin and try to talk about different things, whether that's technical things in Bitcoin or financial treasury company stuff or lending or mining or just basically anything to do with Bitcoin.
Yeah. How did you, back then, how did you kind of get introduced to Bitcoin and how did you teach yourself? We had a lot of conversations the last 2 days and spoke a lot actually about Andreas Antonopoulos and how he orange-pilled a lot of people. Was some of his literature, part of your learning
Yeah,
journey?
for sure. Yeah, in the early days, like for me, that moment where I kind of really sat up straight and took it serious was December 2012, and then early 2013 is when I sort of really was kind of, going down the rabbit hole per se, watching the Andreas videos, reading different material from different people in those days, people like Tua de Meester, Peter Serta, the Nakamoto Institute guys like Michael Goldstein and Pierre Rochard, various people like that, and that was kind of my, orange pilling journey. And so, now of course, I might have had slight disagreements with Andreas on certain aspects of it, and some of those were even like in the podcast that I did with him later on. Of course, like you might have slight disagreements about exactly how you think the vision of Bitcoin will play out. But yeah, I mean, that was just it. Like it was just this amazing idea of a money that's outside the state, all the normal things that we talk about, right? Like it's scarce, it's divisible, fungible, durable as an institution, like all these different aspects that programmable, all these things that come together to make it what we know as Bitcoin today.
Yeah. When you think about your journey and what Bitcoin is today, it looks very different. I got into the industry in 2017. My background is broadcasting in South Africa, radio, and a sports journalist. And I kind of stumbled into this as a side hustle, writing freelance articles about Bitcoin and started getting paid in Bitcoin. And that's kind of how I got into it. And I think back to 2017 when I started, almost 10 years later now, how much has changed for the industry, the institutionalization of Bitcoin. There's a lot of Bitcoiners out there that are like, it wasn't supposed to be like this, and I think
right, the Matrix not like this.
Yeah, it wasn't supposed to be like this, and I think it was Jimmy Song on stage at Bitcoin Nashville like 3 years ago, where he was like, "What the hell are we doing here? We're welcoming the BlackRocks of the world on stage at a Bitcoin conference. This wasn't supposed to be like this." And I'm curious, as someone who's been so long in the industry, if you kind of hold those beliefs, or you think that we're actually in a good space and this was inevitable?
I mean, put it this way: many, let's say, libertarian and cypherpunk people, it hasn't, exactly grown the way many of us thought it would. Yeah. But at the same time, there's also a sense in which, like, it kind of had to go this way. So I don't know. Like, yes, there is the element, and certainly I've been one of the more kind of Bitcoin maxi, kind of anti-shitcoin people for a while. But even for me now, I see it now. I'm not about to go starting a shitcoin or promoting a shitcoin, but to me, it's more just like I see the focus is different. Like I'm trying to take more of a, let's say, ecumenical, big tent approach of just trying to promote Bitcoin, just use Bitcoin, right? Now, of course, ideal case, buy Bitcoin or earn Bitcoin or mine Bitcoin into your self-custody. Like that's just obvious. That's just, but I understand that a lot of people are not going to come in that way, so I think I'm a little more in the kind of purist versus pragmatist. I'm probably a little more on the pragmatist side of things at this, like today, because I think maybe it's like what got us here won't get, there's a saying, what got you here won't get you there.
Yes.
Right? So I think it's kind of like, look, we have to just accept not everybody's going to have that exact sort of libertarian or cypherpunk ideal.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, we still want to grow the pie. We need to get capital into Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. A lot of people love to virtue signal about how, oh, I don't need NGU number go up. I just, they care only about the freedom and they're a special snowflake and this, that, and the other. And I want to try to gatekeep or kind of purity kind of test people, that kind of style. But here's the thing. We all need NGU, right? We can't lie to ourselves. We need NGU.
Yeah.
Yes, freedom is important too, but NGU is an important part of this puzzle because if you get NGU, you get capital coming in, guess what? That enriches the cypherpunks and libertarian people too, and they can go build cool technology and cool things. And so the fundamental point is, look, you can still hold your own keys, you can run your own Bitcoin node, you can engage in Bitcoin mining if you wish, like all these things are still possible. It's just that now we have these new kind of cohorts that are coming from, let's say, more of a TradFi, or there's an institutionalization, of course, whether that's Bitcoin ETFs, whether that is treasury companies, whether that's, kind of borrowing against your Bitcoin and this kind of collateralization. We've seen a big growth in those things. So I just see it like, maybe we don't have to spend all our time kind of fighting shitcoins nowadays. It's more about trying to grow the pie and just get people in. And yes, I accept that there will be people who come in impure or imperfect ways, but I can't stop that. I don't have the power to stop that. We may as well just try to treat that like it's a new, let's say, the marketing funnel. Let's say that stuff is the new top of funnel. So we can see, hey, look, you've got your ETF or you've got some of your whatever. You may have bought a treasury company equity, whatever. But hey, why don't you also learn about self-custody and hey, learn to run your Bitcoin node and kind of do the traditional things that we as kind of Bitcoin maxis talk about.
Yeah. I saw, I think it was a few months ago, Knut Svanholm like having a bit of a dig at Andreas and being like, you betrayed us by, being...
The Ethereum book and stuff like that,
And I don't know, I have a very curious mind and I've worked in the industry since 2017. I worked at Cointelegraph for a long time and I covered a lot of different protocols. So I have a fairly broad knowledge of blockchains, right? But fundamentally, I'm a big believer in Bitcoin, and that for me, like Bitcoin's cut from a different cloth. It's a monetary protocol and everything else is just not the same thing, So I fundamentally understand that. I don't think everything else is a scam. I think that there are some use cases that make sense, but I do think that there is this element of sort of like pre-mines, etc., that got a lot of people rich. It's like an IPO or an ICO where you launch, a certain group of people have early access to the token, they make a huge amount of money. It's not really a fair sort of system. So I see all the criticisms there, but at the same time, I just felt like it was unfair to say that to Andreas because he's done so much for Bitcoin, but at the same time, that's just is what it is. But I think more people should have an open mind and not be so caustic. I think that's my perspective on that.
Yeah.
And
I mean, the way I explain it, look, I think of it like nowadays, it's Bitcoin. And okay, I can't deny stable coins are important, right? A lot of people use them. I can't deny that. But of course, there are ways like stable channels, which is a concept to sort of do it in Bitcoin in a self-custodial way. That's one thing. So I think it's kind of like, it's basically broadly categorizing. It's like, it's Bitcoin, stable coins, and then there's kind of utility tokens, right? And the way I summarize that, and I explained this in Bitcoin Asia last year, it's kind of like bus tickets, right?
Yeah.
People don't go and buy many, many bus tickets to speculate on the future price appreciation of bus tickets. Like, people don't do that, right? It's, okay, if you want to buy the ticket and take the ride, that's one thing. And so that's what we're starting to see now, I think, is like this kind of utility token thesis, which means value is not going to accrue to those what I would call shitcoins.
Yes.
And so it's kind of like, look, people will just use the shitcoins or shit chains to move their stable coins around and whatever, they're doing some DeFi thing, whatever. And even there we're seeing like bridge hacks and all this, that, and the other. So to me, it's more just like, I just see it that way. It's just Bitcoin. Okay, yeah, there's stable coins. And then the rail that many of those stable coins travel on is kind of a utility token, but there's not really much reason to believe that value will accrue to those utility tokens. So that's kind of how I would critique most of the shitcoins and kind of blockchain technology stuff. But at the same time, look, as I said, I'm trying to be ecumenical. I just want more people to use Bitcoin. That's bottom line. Yeah.
No, and that's a very fair point. And I think I'm at the same point now where I don't really see any argument as like Ethereum as money or anything. It's like, sorry, respectfully, that is just not.
That ship's, I mean,
Yeah.
people were trying that argument, and even some of the biggest promoters of that argument have now flipped on that.
Yeah, they've run away from it. Some of them have sold their bags as well.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the Bitcoin treasury movement. Obviously, Michael Saylor sold 32 Bitcoin last week and then bought 1,000 Bitcoin this week. Bitcoin is trading at around $60,000 at the moment. So we're very much in the depths of a bear market. There's a lot of question marks around the longevity of these Bitcoin treasury companies. What do you make of the evolution of Saylor and Strategy's offerings, and is it a net positive for the Bitcoin movement in general, what's been built over the last 5 years?
I believe it is net positive. The reason is, I think, coming back to what I was saying, I think there's only so many people we can, let's say, proselytize to in terms of the traditional kind of libertarian and cypherpunk method of adoption of Bitcoin. I'm not, obviously, I not against that, and I'll try to get more people to use it that way, but I also think these treasury companies have a role. They support the network effect of Bitcoin, right? Historically, what did people do when they tried to outperform Bitcoin? They bought shitcoins.
Yeah.
Well, now, people who are trying to outrun Bitcoin, if they wish to speculate, now, of course, you should be aware of the risks, enter it with open eyes. There's custody risk, there's dilution risk, there's execution risk, and maybe on the back end, if you're selling that treasury, let's say you're looking at a treasury equity, and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to invest in this thing, and I want to hodl it for 10 years or whatever, and then sell that to Bitcoin, you might be paying capital gains tax on the back end, right? So as long as you're aware of all those risks, I think you have to be fair and say, look, there is an advantage in terms of leverage. Now, some people see that as controversial because it's debt or it's leverage or amplification, let's say. But nevertheless, there are people who are able to buy that they could not have otherwise bought Bitcoin, or they would not have otherwise bought Bitcoin. So I think it's not quite fair to say, oh, all these people who bought this way, they would have otherwise bought Bitcoin. It's not true. They would not have all otherwise bought Bitcoin. So is it net bringing in capital? Yes, I believe it is. Now, to be fair, I think the good treasury companies will outrun Bitcoin and the bad ones won't. As we've seen, some treasury companies sold all or most of their stack. And so that, obviously didn't work out. And think about it like this. The analogy would be like we teach our family, hey, come into Bitcoin, buy, start stacking sats, DCA and all this. And they buy the top, and then now, we're in the bear market, and they could look at us being like, hey, Gaza, or hey, Stefan, you got me into this thing and now I'm down. And then what do you say? Well, look, you got to have a long-term view. You got to it's all about kind of stacking sats for the long term. And remember, stacking sats in the bear market is the most important time.
Yeah.
But paradoxically, that's the hardest time for a lot of people because they feel like, oh, it's going to zero, it's all over. I was a fool, I'm an idiot. And that's kind of the paradox of Bitcoin because it spends so much time not at the all-time high. Mm-hmm. That's the challenge when really, because it's so volatile, if you're DCAing, if you were regular DCAing, and you're doing that for long enough, you're up. You're just not up as much as you were. So as long as you keep DCAing and we all keep, advancing Bitcoin, it'll come back. I'm not worried about that.
Yeah.
So I guess to answer your question, yes, I believe treasury companies are net positive. Mm-hmm. They can, and I believe the good ones will attract capital from other places that could not have or would not have otherwise bought Bitcoin.
And I mean, if you think back to when Saylor kind of adopted the Bitcoin standard, it was the only existing sort of financial, it was like a Bitcoin ETF proxy where it was a listed company, and then he converted all his treasury holdings, $200 million to Bitcoin, and then suddenly you had a listed stock that had Bitcoin on its spreadsheet.
Right.
And no one else had that.
And on top of that, they had debt and equity issuance, so they were amplifying, and that's what. And see, that's the thing, because people get a bit triggered by this because in their mind, because some of the more purist side of it will say, no, you should have just bought Bitcoin and never even thought about anything else. But the thing is, you have to also explain, well, how did Strategy or MicroStrategy at the time outrun Bitcoin?
Yeah.
The answer is leverage. The answer is debt. Now, there's risk to that. Be open and honest about it. But yes, so we can't. We can't just ignore that. They outran Bitcoin. Yeah. But here's the thing, it is levered or it's amplified. So that works both ways. It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
So, I think that's another element that's maybe hard for people to grasp because maybe they haven't run the numbers or they haven't conceived of it that way. Because in their mind, they're thinking of it as no, Bitcoin is only for the farmer's market, and you're shaking your rancher's hand and you're buying the meat and the milk and whatever. It's just a different conception of Bitcoin, whereas
Yeah.
I'm just trying to say, look, I think we should take a Big Ten approach.
Yeah, definitely. My final question to you, because we've got a stacked list of guests coming up. The title of this conversation was Pondering the Future of Bitcoin, like where we are right now, the bottom of a bear market. Are you still feeling pretty optimistic?
Yes,
About
very much so. Like, look, of course, we could go lower. Nobody knows,
Yeah.
right? But I'm a believer in the power law. So shout out for Giovanni Stantastasi.
We've got him coming on tomorrow.
Oh,
so,
nice. Yeah. And I think if you look at that, it is following a power law. And I think he's put out some research on this. It's peer reviewed. Like, it's showing that the network is showing some of these characteristics, right? It's not only the price, it's the addresses and the just kind of the hash rate growth. It's following this power law, which is kind of incredible when you think about it. So for me, I think it's like, if you look at this, it just shows, yes, obviously the sentiment and maybe the vibe is down a bit right now, but this paradoxically is the best time. It's the best time to be buying Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I'm very bullish. I believe in like a year or two, we'll be much, much higher than where we are now. Call it 60K or 62K, whatever we are right now.
Yeah.
I think we'll be much higher, but look, nobody knows, right? We could go lower, we could go to 55, who knows? But I just think as long as you are structured in the way such that you can survive out the bear market, I think you'll come out the other end. As long as you're stacking and you survive it, you'll be very happy that you were stacking now.
Yeah, and understanding the why. Like, that's what I always say to people out there with my journey of Bitcoin is like, just fundamentally understand what Bitcoin is, and then that should kind of drive your conviction and why you would want to be acquiring it in the first place. I believe in 5-10 years, we will use it as money. It'll be a store of value as it is. It'll be a medium of exchange, and way further down the line, unit of account, then it's money as we know and call today. But it's still on that journey. But Stefan, thanks so much for joining us. We've got a stacked lineup of speakers joining us. We're going to get Freddie New from B-Hodl on in a couple of minutes' time. So please stay with us on the live stream. And if you're enjoying these conversations, please like and retweet. We want to get as many people listening in this afternoon as we continue conversations right here from BTC Prague. Don't go away. Welcome back to the Starting Block. We're broadcasting live from BTC Prague, keeping the conversations going this afternoon. I'm with a good friend of mine, Freddie New. He is the CEO of BHodl. The first time we've actually done an interview in person, I think.
It is. Everything we've done previously has been virtual. Well,
Yeah,
you're just as beautiful in real life as on
and
the
so
screen.
Are you.
So.
And I mean, we have hung out in real life. Like last year in Vegas, we had a great time together. And yeah, you are one of my favorite Bitcoiners. So it's good good to actually riff it on a live stream and just have a genuine conversation. For people out there like the Block audience that don't know you, don't know BHodl, do you want to give us a quick rundown of who you are, what you do, and how you got into Bitcoin?
Yeah, 100%. So I'm now the CEO of BHodl. That we're a listed company. We listed last autumn in the UK, initially as a Bitcoin treasury play. So we went out to the market, raised money, bought Bitcoin. The differentiating factor for us, between us and a bunch of other treasury companies, is we're very much focused on using our Bitcoin in the Lightning Network for payments and growing that payment network as well. And that's really our underlying business. So a lot of our team are very experienced Lightning engineers, and we're focused initially on two business models. One in relation to routing nodes, and the second is as an LSP, a Lightning Services Provider. So both of those business lines are now launched and are running, and we're very pleased with the progress so far.
For me, it's like one of the best. I guess it's, you don't, I mean, do you classify yourself as a Bitcoin treasury company as well?
That's a super interesting question, because in some respects you could say that we're kind of a tech company.
Yeah.
Yes, we buy Bitcoin, we think it's valuable, and we buy it by issuing shares initially. But we are actually using the Bitcoin. We self-custody ourselves. And we have a best-in-class self-custody protocol. We publish our proof of reserves on our website, and the team are super focused on payments and effectively answering Alan Farrington's T-shirt question: where does the yield come from?
Yeah.
And in our case, it's from Lightning.
Yeah, which is beautiful, right? It's like I think there's I stand to be corrected. I don't think there's really any sort of treasury companies that, like you said, issue stock and then you bought some Bitcoin with it, but a Bitcoin sort of treasury that is running a Bitcoin-focused business, and it's Lightning infrastructure.
Yeah, we're the only one in the UK. There's one other doing something similar in Canada, but we're the only one in our market, and I think the only one in Europe.
Yeah, and it's super important. Maybe for the audience out there that don't really understand being an infrastructure provider on the Lightning Network, how that works and why that's important for Bitcoin payments in particular.
Yeah, of course. So most of your listeners will probably be aware of the old criticism of Bitcoin. It's too slow to buy coffee, so no one's ever going to pay for anything with it.
Yeah.
So in some respects, then they've got a point. We know the base layer is very secure, relatively slow. The reason it's slow is because it's secure.
Yeah.
So you might want to make an on-chain payment, and you'd wait for 10 minutes to get that confirmed in a block. And then to be sensible, you might wait for another few blocks to make sure that initial block is not orphaned. What that means is that occasionally you have two competing chains, and the rules of the Bitcoin system are that the longest chain always wins.
Yes.
And so once you've got 6 confirmations, you can be pretty sure that transaction will not be reversed. The clever thing about the Lightning Network is that it maintains that security and that safety, but allows for real-time transactions to take place, effectively the speed of light.
Yeah.
And that's because it operates on a system of only 2 transactions being written to the base layer. If you and I open a channel between each other, that's 1 transaction, and that can stay open as long as we like. We can pass Bitcoin between each other in that channel at the speed of light, and then it's only written to the base layer again when you close the channel. And in terms of the actual network itself, perhaps you friends with someone on the other side of the expo hall, but I'm not connected to them. I can route my payment through that person if I want to pay them, and you then routing that payment, you charge a small fee, and that's where our business makes its money.
Beautiful. It's really great that there are a handful of people that are interested in making Bitcoin payments great again. It's a conversation I had with Joe Nakamoto earlier today and a few people yesterday, because the way that things have gone, like Michael Saylor's strategy, Bitcoin play, that is not using Bitcoin as money. It's using it as essentially underlying pristine capital, to build credit products on. But it's not quite the same thing as the original vision of Bitcoin, which is supposed to be an electronic payments network.
Yeah.
What do you think of the current state of Bitcoin and that treasury play?
That's a really interesting question. I think you're right that it's something that a lot of people are thinking about. For me, I take a more holistic view of Bitcoin, and fundamentally, for me, Bitcoin is a tool that lets you solve certain problems.
Yeah.
So start with a problem and think about how you might solve that via an implementation of Bitcoin or via use of Bitcoin. If your problem is cross-border transfers, where Western Union, for example, can take 12 to 20% of the amount that's being transferred, and you trying to send money back to your family overseas, you may not want to use Western Union, but you can use Lightning.
Yeah.
And we can make that transfer for you with a very, very small cost to you. And that means the recipient gets much more of that money. At the same time, if you're a pension fund or an insurance fund and you want to get price exposure to that pristine capital, your problem is very different from that person who's transferring money cross-border.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing about Bitcoin is that it can do both of those things equally well.
Yes.
It can make that transfer to Zimbabwe, to South Africa, to the Philippines, but it can also form 1 or 2% of a pension fund's invested capital. And to me, that's fine. It's like that old joke about the blind guys going into a room and feeling an elephant. And, one of them feels its leg, another its tail, and another its ear. And they all have a different view of what they're touching, but it's actually the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's we don't really get to choose what Bitcoin is and how people use it, and I think that's the beauty of it, is it's serving all of these purposes simultaneously. They're not mutually exclusive. You've been involved in Bitcoin Policy UK. So I stand to be corrected, you're one of the founding members, right?
Yeah, one of the co-founders.
Yeah, talk to me a little bit about that and your overall thoughts on Bitcoin in the UK and whether all your compatriots, I'm a British passport holder as well, so I guess that impacts me as well, but what the future of Bitcoin in the UK looks like in your mind.
It's funny, I tend to answer that question differently depending on my mood at the time. But
how much politicians in the UK have pissed you off?
Exactly. So the UK is a weird one. We got this proud history in computing, proud history in finance. I think, according to a recent report that was put up by Eric Yakes' fund, we have some of the most negative media towards Bitcoin in the entire world, not just in Europe, which kind of surprised me. But I think a lot of people's viewpoint of Bitcoin in the UK is inevitably shaped by that negative media attitude towards it, with some great exceptions, obviously, yourself being one of them. The numbers of people in the UK who hold Bitcoin are relatively stable. I think we're looking at about 7 to 10% of people, which is not a small number. The politicization of Bitcoin, I think, is a bit regrettable. At the moment, you and your listeners are probably aware that Nigel Farage has been getting a lot of heat from taking money from a crypto billionaire. That term I find slightly irritating. It's a lazy heuristic that's used by the media to indicate that someone is bad. So you say he's a sleazy crypto billionaire, and automatically the readers of The Guardian and the watchers of the BBC will know, oh, he must be bad then. Which is a shame. And our regulator has been relatively backwards until recently. To be a bit more cheerful, some of the more recent drafts of the regulation that we've reviewed, both as in my role at BHODL and previously with BP UK, I've been pleasantly surprised by some of the changes that have been being made in the regulation. And specific example, there's a relatively small number of activities which now look to be being regulated activities. And a lot of them are relating to stable coins and to DeFi, not directly relevant to Bitcoin. We're currently pushing for clarification that things like self-custody, running a node, running Lightning services will not be regulated. It looks from the guidance of the legislation as though that's not the plan, which is great. And so that means that self-custody software developers or self-custody hardware developers or businesses such as ourselves won't need to be regulated at all because we won't be doing financial services. So if I had to give you a TLR, it's a TLDR, it's swings and roundabouts, some good, some bad.
Yeah, and hopefully it continues to go in a more positive direction and like sanity prevails. Because I think the US had this for ages, right? And they're going through the process now. Clarity Act it's supposed to be, go through here in the summer. And they're on the cusp of like a very favorable environment for Bitcoin and just cryptocurrency in general. And you would think that the UK would have been streets ahead of everyone else, but it just hasn't been like that. And like an anecdote, my mom has had some crypto on Luno, and they've just closed down. Oh. And the reason they're closing down in the UK is just like the regulatory environment is just not helping them run their business there. And they're like, we'd rather focus on other markets where it's a lot more favorable for us to offer these services to people. So she needs to find another, custodian
I'm
to
sorry
hold
about you,
those
man. That's
assets.
a stressful story.
It's okay. She should liquidate it all, put it into Bitcoin in self-custody. I told her that already, but, why listen to me? I'm just a journalist covering the space for 10 years. But she'll do her own thing. But it's true, though. Like, it's a very small example of kind of how things have gone. And if a big player like Luno, which is one of the biggest cryptocurrency exchanges in South Africa, and their footprint in other jurisdictions is very large, and there's no reason why they couldn't have been very successful in the UK, but they probably haven't been because the legislation it wasn't a great environment to run a cryptocurrency exchange in the UK.
That's actually a great example, even though you said it's a small one. I mean, we're sitting right here next to the Relay booth. I was chatting with Julian, the founder, the other day, and obviously Relay haven't entered the UK market.
Yeah.
And part of the reason is we're not in the EU anymore. We're obviously not part of the United States. And as a pure business decision, even a company like Luno or like Relay looks at us and they say, how many new customers am I going to get? What's the total addressable market in the UK? It's maybe 15 million people if we hit everyone, and it's likely going to be a lot less than that. Are we really going to spend $3 million, £3 million on getting a license for such a small market when the people who are making the rules to that market have made it clear that we're not welcome?
Yeah.
You know what? Maybe it doesn't make a business decision for them.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't at all. Freddie, we're going to keep it short and sharp. Like, it was good to catch up with you. And if you want to check out Bitcoin Policy in UK, Susie's still running that, right?
Yeah, it's still live. The website's, all our research is on the website.
Yeah, so you can go and Google that. If you're not following Freddie New, find him on Twitter at Freddie New. Very easy. A double DIE. That's how you'll find it. Thanks so much for chatting to us, and please don't run away. Like and retweet the live stream if you're enjoying the conversations. We're going to take a very short break, and then I've got Mauricio from Leiden joining us for a conversation, and then we've got the big man Larry Cermak coming up after him, the president of the block, kind of my boss, I guess. So we'll have him on the live stream shortly. So keep it locked. Don't run away. We'll be back in a couple of minutes' time. Welcome back to the Starting Block. We're broadcasting live from BTC Prague, keeping the conversations going here on the Block's live news desk. It's been an absolutely fantastic day, and we are now in conversation with Mauricio Di Bartolomeo. He's the co-founder of Leden. And if you don't know what Leden is, we're going to be talking all about it. Mauricio, it's great to finally meet you in person, do this in person.
Likewise, guys. Yeah. Likewise, man.
First things first, you were saying to me off air, you're blown away by this conference. It's pretty crazy that we're in the depths of a bear market and this is a packed house full of Bitcoiners.
Absolutely. I've been so pleasantly surprised at the atmosphere. And listen, Prague is always amazing. Like Martin and Matthias, by the way, shout out to the Bitcoin Prague team.
Yeah.
You guys do an amazing job every year. I'm just a little shocked, frankly, at like how many people we have here. I've been to a bunch of conferences earlier this year, and the atmosphere here is completely different in a good way. And I'm just happy to be here, man.
Yeah, me too. For the audience out there that don't know much about Leden and yourself, tell us the story of Leden and Bitcoin-backed loans that you've built, because I think you guys will kind of pioneers in this space.
We were, yeah. We issued Canada's first Bitcoin-backed loan back in 2018. And the sort of journey towards it, I'll give you the synthesized version. I was born and raised in Venezuela. That's where I got my PhD on hyperinflation, figurative. My family, this is in 2014 and 15. At the time, there were no stablecoins. Yeah. And so Bitcoin was the only option to get out of local currency, regardless of how volatile it was, regardless of how unknown it was, how obscure it was, or for some people perhaps difficult to digest or understand, but there was no other choice. So Venezuelans were almost forced into Bitcoin through hyperinflation. And my family started mining Bitcoin back in 2015. I was at that time building a life in Canada because I was my family's plan B. And so I had to sort of go back, and they had free power because Venezuelan power is very subsidized, but I didn't have free power. So I set up a mine in Canada with my best friend Adam Reeds, and we started mining, and we had the same issue that Venezuela did, which is we earn Bitcoin, but we have to pay fiat. And so we had to sell some Bitcoin to pay the fiat. And him and I both come from finance backgrounds, and we're very familiar with debt instruments. Yeah. And we wanted a loan. And so we went looking for one, and banks at the time and financial companies thought that there was a ludicrous idea. They not only did not give us a loan, but they shut down our bank accounts. So that was interesting because in that we actually got more excited because they were so asleep at the wheel that we thought there was a great window for us to build the product we wanted. Yeah. So we raised private money, and we did Canada's first Bitcoin-backed loan November 2nd, 2018. Today, we are at a consumer Bitcoin-backed loan level. We are the biggest in the industry. We hold about a 30% market share based on our estimates. So 1 in 3 Bitcoin-backed loans globally are done at Leden, which we're immensely proud of. And our business has been very simple from the beginning. We are the most transparent, the most, we wanted to build the most resilient and transparent operation that you could have as a centralized lender, right? Yeah. So we publish our book size. We were the first ones to do proof of reserves. We were the first lender to ever do proof of reserves. We do them, we continue to do them. We have the longest running program. And most recently, we just did a bond with we did a bond that was rated investment grade by S&P, which we can get into because I believe it's a transformative transaction for the industry, not just for Leden. And and I'd love to get into it, but long and the short of it is we're Bitcoin-backed lenders. We've been doing this pretty much longer than anyone else. And don't take it from me. Read our reviews, talk to people that have used our service. But we're focused, and we believe there's a huge future for this.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the Bitcoin-backed loans, especially like in the context of a bear market, because we had Jack Mallers on the show yesterday, and obviously Strike also do Bitcoin lending now. So you've got some competition in the market, but a lot of the conversations that happen around Bitcoin lending was like, be careful with Bitcoin lending because if the price takes a really sharp downturn, there is a chance that you could lose your Bitcoin if if you're basically liquidated. Maybe you can talk about maybe the misconceptions around that and what the realities are when it comes to lending against your Bitcoin versus selling your Bitcoin for fiat.
100%. So a few things. So number one, when you take a Bitcoin back loan at Ledin, we're not looking at your credit score. We're not looking at your income. We're not looking at pretty much anything. You're a compliant individual in a jurisdiction that we can service, and you have the right amount of Bitcoin to back the loan. So the only security that Ledin has on that loan is your Bitcoin.
Yes.
So if we lend you $50,000 and you gave us $100,000 worth of Bitcoin, clearly we cannot let that collateral get even close to the loan that we gave to you, because if we do that and we don't sell it, there is a theoretical scenario where your collateral is not worth 20K, you owe us 50, and at that point you just walk away.
Yeah.
And if that happens to enough loans, the company's in the hook.
Yes.
And when the company's in the hook, every other borrower in the pool is on the hook.
Yeah.
So although nobody likes liquidating, listen, we hate liquidations.
Of course.
We do not want to liquidate clients. We make money when loans are open. I come to all of these events. We work day and night to gain people's trust so that they can use the service and feel comfortable. And they come to us because they don't want to sell their Bitcoin. So the last thing we want to do is sell it at an even lower price than they gave it to us. So we try to be very upfront about what it is that this product is. We don't try to hide that Bitcoin is a volatile asset. Bitcoin is volatile, but Bitcoin moves fast. And if you plan accordingly, you will have a good outcome. You just have to size it appropriately. You have to have a plan in order for you to be able to react. If you try to take a loan and forget that Bitcoin's volatile and you put in your entire stack into the loan and you have no means to, make that loan healthier if you need to, you're putting yourself in a really tight spot.
Yeah.
And so what I would say is, and listen, the large majority of Ledin clients are incredibly diligent. And there are some instances where people can get caught off guard because they weren't anticipating it, or they saw price coming down and they decided to wait. And by the time they decided to send the Bitcoin, it was a little late. And so what I will say is, people that have a plan and people that budget their Bitcoin collateral responsibly have a great experience at Ledin.
Yeah.
And that's why Ledin is growing, and that's why this industry is growing. If people weren't benefiting from their loans, if more people were getting liquidated than benefiting from it, we wouldn't be growing.
Yeah.
And nor would the industry be, right? The industry, 2025 was the best year in the history of our business. We originated $1.4 billion in loans just in 2025. Of course, that meant that a lot more competitors are now seeing that and saying, oh, this is a great business. We've been doing this for 8 years. We have seen over those 8 years, many people come and go. Very well capitalized, said all the right things, shook all the right hands. That doesn't mean your back end is buttoned up.
Yeah.
A better sign of your back end being buttoned up is having a ratings agency like S&P do an X-ray of your business to come up with a rating for your bond. That is a level of transparency that no other firm in the space has come even close to.
Yeah.
And so, again, I think at Ledin, when it comes to risk management, I think we've set the bar as far as how you endure, how do you build a resilient lending operation?
Yeah.
We hope that we're setting a good example. We're seeing a lot more people get rid of rehypothecation, for example, keep the assets in custody. There's been people that are now saying, we'll do proof of reserves. Even though we've been doing them for God knows how many years.
Yeah.
But funny enough, it's not standard practice. We publish the size of our book every month.
Yeah.
We think that's healthy. Our bond is transparent. You can see what it costs us. You can see how many loans are vended in. You can see how much Bitcoin is. It's at fidelity.
Yeah.
So again, it's really important when you're trusting your Bitcoin to a third party that you, A, are doing your diligence, and B, that party is giving you enough data points, verifiable data points, that you can use in your assessment, right? And so that's what we do at Ledin. We put it all in front of you so that you can make your call.
Yeah. Let's talk about the bond, and in the context of that, obviously, we have Bitcoin ETFs, and then we had Michael Saylor sort of innovating very, very quickly and building, Bitcoin based, digital credit offerings, and a bond versus what he's doing with STRC, etc., are at like opposite ends of the spectrum, right? 'Cause
Correct.
one is borrowing fiat to buy Bitcoin, and then promise a return, whereas a bond is borrowing against your Bitcoin and taking out money, right? So they are at opposite ends of the spectrum, but you've had great success this year. Tell us about the bond and like this rating that you've got, because it also, in my mind, from what you told me off air, it does a lot for the credibility of Bitcoin, that a big financial institution has been like, this is a great credit offering.
Correct.
It's good for Bitcoin.
Yes. So let me walk you through the bond, what it is.
Yes.
And then I'll walk you through how it is different than some of these preferreds and other instruments that are being called credit, but they're not really credit from an actual technical or literal point of view. They're being used as credit, or they kind of look like credit, but they're not traditional. They're not actually credit.
Yeah.
So first, the bond. So at Ledden, we've been growing tremendously, and we believe that the Bitcoin-backed lending market in the next 5 to 10 years is going to grow to $1 trillion. That means we need to have line of sight to $1 trillion in liquidity to satisfy that demand. And no single balance sheet out there can come up with $1 trillion.
No.
So we ask ourselves, well then, where do you get $1 trillion? Like, how are bigger markets financing those books? So you look at mortgages, you look at auto loans, even credit cards. In mortgages, 60 to 70% of all mortgages are securitized and sold as bonds. In auto loans, I think that's at 25%. Credit cards, 6 to 7%. What I mean by securitizing and selling off to the bond market is that at Ledden, let's just say, at the time we originated the loan, our book size was nearly $1 billion. So you say, okay, well, I get $200 million of those loans, and I package them up as a bond, and I sell that bond, I securitize it, and I sell it to investors, okay? And that is the ABS market that I just mentioned that works for mortgages and auto loans and credit cards.
Yeah.
So that market is trillions of dollars deep, and it is very well structured. It's been working for, I think, a century now. And so there's a lot of standards that need to be met. Even within the bond market, you have different criteria, right? There's investment grade bonds, and then there's non-investment grade bonds. And many entities, like pension funds, endowments, and others, can only buy investment grade rated instruments.
Yeah.
Who decides what's investment grade? 2 ratings agencies, S&P Global and Moody's. So in order to get an investment grade, in order to get a bond that's meaningful, you need size, you need at least $200 million, and you need a rating.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to, we set out about a year and change ago to deliver the first bond into this market, and we wanted to do our best to reach investment grade. So we selected the best ratings agency, S&P Global. We selected Fidelity as our custodian. We selected Jefferies to carry or run the book, and we started the process. This year, we formally announced the launch. So we did receive an investment grade rating from S&P as a first-time issuers. This is the first time S&P has ever rated a Bitcoin debt instrument, and it is the first investment grade rating they've ever issued. And funny enough, we were marketing this bond during February, which was during the correction. And the very interesting thing was during these meetings, a lot of these investors who hadn't bought a Bitcoin instrument before were worried about how the system would work in a downturn. Yeah. And here they were reviewing the deal during a downturn and seeing 0 loan defaults in the middle of a Bitcoin drawdown. And that made them feel a lot more comfortable about our processes. And so the bond ended up being 3 times oversubscribed on the junior, 2 times oversubscribed on the senior, during a bear market as a first-time issuer. And so we've proven that if you hit the bar, the demand is there. Yeah. But you have to hit the bar. Yeah. And if you want, I can walk you through why I believe we were uniquely positioned to hit the bar. And I think it's going to be a while before someone else can hit the bar. Yeah. But we've started it. Yeah. And in this world, subsequent issuances, if you do your job, get increasingly better pricing.
Yeah.
Meaning that if we do this right, we believe we have a big opportunity to open up that market, price it correctly, and use that benefit to basically deliver cheaper rates on our loans over time.
Yeah. And a lot of that comes down to the proof of work that you've done over the last 8 years, right? That's the most important thing.
There you go.
Yeah, I think that sets you guys apart from the rest when it comes to that. And I'm looking at my schedule. We're jam-packed for the next hour, so we'll probably have to continue this conversation when we continue the starting block. It's our new daily live show, and we can go in depth a little bit further with that. But yeah, thank you so much for talking about Ledin, talking about Bitcoin-backed loans, and I think it's very important in the context of where we are with Bitcoin trading at $60,000. 50% down from its all-time high last year. That the market's still healthy, and that these offerings are tried and tested now, and it's not just fluff, and people can actually do, your Bitcoin has value, and even when it's halved in value, it still doesn't change what Bitcoin is, and you guys can still operate, Yeah. Mauricio, thank you so much for your time. If you're interested in finding more about Ledin, you can Google Ledin, Ledn, check them out on X as well, and if you don't follow Mauricio, you can find him on X as well. Keep it locked right here on the starting block. I'm going to be chatting to Larry Cermak, who's the president at the block. I'm going to ask him why he hired me in the first place, and give us a little bit of rundown of the history of the block and what we're trying to build at this very special publication. Please don't go away. We'll be back in a few minutes' time. Welcome back to the Starting Block. We're broadcasting live from BTC Prague. I'm really looking forward to this conversation because I'm chatting to Larry Cermak, who's the president at the block. Thanks for giving me a job.
Of course, good to be here.
Yeah, it's been like 4 months since I joined the block, and you're someone that I followed online for a really long time. For people out there that don't know you, and I don't think we've ever had a chance to talk about this, tell us how you got into the industry. I believe it started with your university degree, right?
Yeah. So I started at my university when I was writing my thesis, which at the time was focused on Bitcoin and the future of Bitcoin. This was 2016. So at the time, I think I was viewed as a little bit crazy because 2016, that was pre the 2017 round. So Bitcoin was trading at less than 1,000, I think around $1,000 or something. And my economics professor was kind of like, really? Like, is this what you want to spend time on? And I did, and I think it was the right decision. One thing that was interesting at the time, which changed a lot, is that there was no research in crypto or in Bitcoin. It was nothing. It was like you had some journalists, and then you had the economists who were all like, this is going to zero, this is garbage. And then you had the believers, the cultish believers who were like, okay, everyone's going to be using Bitcoin in 2 years. And I felt like there must be a middle somewhere, right? Like, it can't just be like it's all positive versus it's all negative. So I tried to find a middle lane. And I got very lucky because then 2017, as I published my thesis, crypto went absolutely crazy. It was 2017 mania.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, large exchanges as well as media companies started looking for their own research departments because crypto grew so much that all of a sudden it was like, well, if we want to be taken seriously by the institutional audience, we have to have serious research. It can't just be like Bitcoin's going to $100,000, right? It has to be fundamental research.
Yeah.
And that's the niche that I was able to get into. And I started doing that full time in 2017, early 2017, and have been in crypto full time since then. Joined the block in late 2018, so I've been at the block for almost 10 years, which is fucking insane.
It is insane. Can you take us back to the formation of the block and like what that looked like when you were joining?
Yeah, I mean, it was just an early stage startup. It was started by Mike Dudas, who is no longer at the company, but at the time I started tweeting a little bit. So like the way I started, I was basically thinking, okay, well, if no one's doing research, how can I make people care about what I'm doing?
Yeah.
And it was very much like fundamental stuff, simple things, looking at traded volumes, looking at, the products that existed and analyzing things, I would say fairly, sometimes critically as well. And I started tweeting some of my content. And at the time, I had 5,000 followers, maybe small amount, but it kept growing. There were people who were intellectually curious at the time. And Dudas, who founded the block, a few months before I joined, he was following me at the time. He liked the content I was putting out. And he started messaging me, do you want to join this company that I'm starting? And I told him no maybe like 3 times because I had a job and I was pretty happy. It was
playing hard to get.
Yeah. Well, playing hard to get, but also I was just happy at what I was doing. It was an independent research company called DR. And they allowed me to do basically whatever I wanted. I could write any research I wanted. And I felt like there was, something that I really enjoyed. And Dudas kept pushing. And eventually, after probably 2 or 3 months of him just being like, hey, do you want to interview? Do you want to like get this job? Do you want to be head of research? Eventually I was like, okay, fine. Like,
let's do this.
Let's do it. It was a New York startup. And that was appealing to me from the perspective of like, well, I was like basically fresh out of college. It was like 2 years out of college. And Dudas had big hopes about where the block would go. And basically it was, let's create a really fair, independent media company, and let's create a really fair, independent research company. And that was unheard of at the time. Messari was just starting at the time, was our only competitor on the research side. And I thought, that's cool. Like, let's try it. On the media side, it was basically only CoinDesk and Cointelegraph, and on the research side, it was just Messari. No one else existed at the time. And, I like competing. I always like, I try to win whenever I can, and it sounded like a fun job. At the time, it was just Frank, myself, Dudas, and a couple of other people who both left the firm. So the only person that's still at the company is Steven, who was there, I think, 1 or 2 weeks before I joined.
Okay. And yeah, so it's basically just you and him surviving. And I think very much like, I've only been at the block for 4 months, and you guys are very much the DNA of the company. And it's like I said to you when we first had a conversation. I mean, you weren't chasing me like Dudas was chasing you, but the conversation we had was like, from the outside looking in, the block just has a fantastic reputation that's been built up over time, taken seriously for its news and its research, and I think it still is that.
I think like the core DNA of the block was just like people who really cared about the industry and people who really wanted there to be better information. I think like people take it for granted. A lot of people who joined last 3 or 4 years, they started in crypto in the last maybe 5 years. They think, okay, well, things are pretty good. But back then, 2018, like information was shit. Like CoinDesk was garbage. And the only reason why CoinDesk got better is because we kept pushing them and pushing the quality bar higher.
Yeah.
And it was very necessary because like, if you look at the people who take crypto seriously these days, like the large banks, the large consultancy firms, Wall Street in general, it was impossible to take it seriously initially because it was just like nonsense information that was being spread all the time. It was just like bullish tweets and just like, data that was wrong and stuff like that. And it was very demoralizing because we were all thinking like, 95% people say that Bitcoin is going to zero. We don't believe that, but we also don't believe that it should be pushed in this like very exaggerated way.
Yeah.
Why don't we do something about it? And I think like the reason why the industry has professionalized is because obviously there's more interest, but that interest came from better information initially, and that then turns into more capital, and that then grows the industry enough so that it's appealing for everyone who is involved right now to be involved.
Yeah. I don't think we've ever really had like much of a footprint at Bitcoin-only conferences. We're here at BTC Prague. You and I both kind of were like blown away by the amount of people here, and also just considering, like, I think it's fair to say we're in the depths of a bear market right now. This place is packed.
It's absolutely packed. I was messaging a few of my friends just like, this is insane. I've been to probably like 3 or 4 conferences over the last year, and they look depressing most of the time.
Yeah.
Most of the talks are pretty empty. A lot of the seats just end up being empty. There's generally a lot of sponsors, but not a lot of people. And this seems like the opposite. There's maybe like 30 sponsors here, but thousands of 5,000 people. I think the Sailor talk that I was just at, completely packed. Not one seat was open, and people were standing up to watch that. Obviously, it's a huge topic today and over the last week, so it makes sense that it would be the most popular presentation. But even then, I'm pleasantly surprised, given where the market is, how much interest there still is. And we're in Prague, which is not known for like the biggest Bitcoin base, and there's a lot of people from outside of Prague, outside of Czech Republic, that came here just for this conference. So I think it's pretty incredible.
I was going to say, I think it's a little bit the Sailor effect, but we were, Jordan and I were in Miami for Consensus, and he was there among a lot of other big names in the industry, and it was nowhere near as well attended as that.
I
Which is crazy.
I don't understand it. I think part of it could be that this conference, it's generally the conference model is sell expensive tickets and make it feel exclusive. Whereas this conference takes a little bit of a different approach, where the tickets are not as expensive. They're maybe like 30% of the price that you would normally pay in the global conferences, and maybe that's what's bringing the larger, more retail-oriented audience. But even then, like they've done a really good job.
Yeah. I want to talk to you about the markets in general. It's obvious. I think it's fair to say we're in a bear market. Bitcoin's trading around $60,000. There's been a lot of tokens that are just so down bad. And then there's been a handful of tokens or protocols that are leading the charge. I mean, you could talk about Hyperliquid. You can talk about Zcash. And I mean, it's amazing that Zcash didn't go to zero, like considering what happened. But like, what's your general read on the market and like big performers, things you're looking out for as someone who's been in research for a really long time?
Yeah, I think in the last probably 5 years or so, this is the worst the market has felt to me personally in a very long time. It could be 5 years, could be maybe even a little bit longer.
Since 2018 for me, I think, because I got in the industry in 2017, and like February, March 2018, when Bitcoin was at like $2,000. Yeah, it was like as low as that. And then
So personally, I thought like 2018 and 2019 was a little bit worse. but it feels close to it today.
Yeah.
And it hasn't felt good in the last like 2 or 3 years. I think you kind of nailed it. Like you look at over the last 2 or 3 years, there have been hundreds of tokens that have ICO, created TGE and ICO to whatever, launched their tokens. Basically, there's no bid for those tokens at all, right? You mentioned, you said it correctly. There's probably 2 or 3 tokens. I wouldn't even say a handful. There's probably 2 or 3 tokens that have performed well. If you discard the scams that are being pumped on Binance, there's a good good amount of that as well. Lab, so many of these garbage tokens, and I think this is one of the worst parts of the industry right now, is that there's so little activity that, when a garbage, nonsensical token gets pumped to $20 billion and then goes down 95% from there, that's the worst extraction you can possibly do. It's bad for everyone, and I would hope that at some point, like Binance and other exchanges will, and it's not just Binance, it's OKX, it's BitGet, it's other exchanges, Bybit as well. I would hope that eventually they stop this activity because it's a bad look for the industry. Yeah. But if we take those out, it's basically just Hype and Zcash that have performed well over the last year or so. And Hype, I would say largely for fundamental reasons. They were able to outcompete everyone in terms of decentralized perps, and they created a really good sticky product that people want to use. Zcash, I would say was able to. It's a lot. It has a lot to do about the narrative and about how many people started caring about privacy because of how much discourse there has been around that. So I would say it's a little bit less organic than, for example, Hyperliquid.
Definitely.
But still, there's clearly people buying. They're buying for the fundamental reasons of believing in privacy, and that is a good reason to buy. But if we look for everything outside of that, there's no bid for anything that has launched in the last 2 or 3 years. Monad was one of the most hyped up launches ever. It's basically flat since TGE. There's so many of these examples, like Mega ETH, for example. They were able to raise so much capital at basically $900 million valuation for locked up tokens, and it's trading at 400 right now or 450. It's down 50% from the locked tokens they sold 3 months ago. People thought it would go to $5-10 billion easily, and it cannot even cross $500 million FDV right now. That's how little bid there is, and I think what's happening in the market right now is that there is a limited pool of capital that everyone's competing for. There's very little new capital that's coming into the industry, and because of that, everyone's just trying to fight for the same pool of capital, and only Hyperliquid and Zcash have been able to accomplish it. And outside of that, projects are running out of money. Very few companies are willing to spend. There's zero user acquisition over the last 2 years. A lot of it, I think, has to do with AI taking over as much as it did. In terms of attention, right? Crypto used to be number 1 for 3 or 4 years ago. Now, for all the young people that used to care about crypto, now everyone just wants to be in the AI industry, and that's where the hot ball of money is. Everyone's funding AI startups. A lot of it is shitty AI startups, just like 2017 ICOs.
Exactly.
But that's where the money and attention is right now.
Yeah, it is. I wanted to get your thoughts just on Ethereum before we talk about Bitcoin to close out the conversation, because we've got a couple more interviews coming up. But you've been involved in the industry a long time. I think you're highly connected to most people at the top levels of Ethereum. I have a good relationship with Joe Lubin. I've had some great interviews with him over the years, but I have some question marks about the longevity of Ethereum from here, and I'm just curious as someone who knows better.
Yeah, I would say I was very active in the DeFi boom that happened in early 2020s. And for a long time I thought that Ethereum was the most logical thing to settle a lot of the activity that I thought would settle on it. Lending makes a lot of sense, right? Lending as a market is always going to be something that exists on DeFi. Decentralized exchanges, always something that's going to exist. You always have a market for non-KYC trading, effectively. And initially I thought that Ethereum has the right balance of it's functional enough and it's also decentralized enough that people will build on it, and then the network effect will be so strong that it's difficult to disrupt. I've changed my mind on that pretty drastically. Solana has done a great job marketing and acquiring new users. Ethereum unfortunately was in this position where it was just too expensive to transact on it, and not only that, but the leadership of Ethereum I don't think has done a good job steering the ship and making it appealing for not just the purists, the decentralization maxis, but also for like normal users.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that I think is a big problem. I think the biggest problem overall, though, is that when we talk to large capital allocators, right? Like the block works with a lot of like larger institutional clients, and I talk to a lot of people who allocate tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. What they want generally is some sort of predictability of what will happen in the next couple of years or 3 years or something.
Yeah.
And what Solana did to Ethereum was basically break the assumption that Ethereum will always be the winning chain when it comes to settlement of smart contracts.
Yeah.
And once that happened, and once people started thinking about that, it massively decreases the ability for large capital allocators to be like, okay, fuck it, like let's put in $10 million, $100 million, because now they have to be thinking like, it's not just that like crypto will still be here, it will still like, it makes sense for DeFi to exist, but it's also, is this the best chain? Is this technologically the best solution that we have today? And when people started thinking about it that way, it was just very difficult to make that commitment to invest a lot of money into Ethereum. So I think personally that it will be difficult for Ethereum to continue doing well with all these issues unless something at the foundation like really drastically changes.
Yeah. My final question, and we've got Efrat waiting for us, so we're going to move on very quickly.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the future of Bitcoin right now? Like, we're at a bottom. I think I don't know how much lower it'll trade from here, but who knows? No one has a crystal ball, but what do you think?
Yeah, no one knows, and I don't want to make any like crazy guesses. Ultimately, I think long-term Bitcoin is something that will be around 50 years from now.
Yeah.
Short-term, I think there are basically two issues right now that I have with Bitcoin that I think like large investors actually do. One is that there's the strategy issue, which is one entity owns 4% of Bitcoin. It's leveraged as much as it possibly could, and right now it's difficult for it to continue financing the debt that it already has. So for strategy to recover from this, basically Bitcoin has to go higher.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people on the sidelines who are thinking like, what if actually this becomes an issue and they have to start selling Bitcoin? What will happen to the price of Bitcoin, right? Will be like the overhang of this problem, I think, is larger than people realize. It's not just, when people say, okay, well, sale will be liquidated and Bitcoin will go to zero, that's complete bullshit.
Yeah.
That will never happen. But what could happen is that there will be slow grind of him having to sell some Bitcoin to be able to cover the obligations that he has. And unfortunately, when people think that this is a real possibility, it's difficult to, again, allocate a lot of money because you would rather wait out the situation, see if Bitcoin recovers a little bit, and only when it gets a little bit safer, that's when you would want to be involved again. So that is a real problem. Not the fact that Bitcoin will go to zero because of it, but the fact that it's difficult to step in and buy a lot of Bitcoin right now when you know that this guy, is changing his mind on things, like pivoting on a few issues. I would say going, slightly more reckless than he has historically been. That is a problem. And the longer term issue, I think, is the biggest strength of Bitcoin historically has always been that it's difficult to change Bitcoin, that it's so stable, predictable. And, within the next 10 years, there's going to likely be a quantum breakthrough at some point. And there is some people who believe that because of how Bitcoin is structured and how governance works and how the changes are actually being made, that it's going to be difficult for Bitcoin to adjust in time.
Yeah.
And so because we don't know if quantum will happen in 3 years, likely not, but if it happens in 5 years instead of 10, there's a lot of work that has to go into it. And the Bitcoin structure itself is hard to change because of how it's been hardwired over the last 10 years or so. So my view on Bitcoin is long-term, I think it will continue outperforming. I think long-term it will be completely fine, and these are issues that will be solved. But short-term, I would not be surprised if there's more pain going, from this point. I would be surprised actually if what we have today is the bottom, largely because you have to have people that start stepping in to be like, shit, like this is a good level, I want to start buying here.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's right now when you have, you know, the guy that owns 4% going a little bit crazy. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's definitely uncertain. Larry, it's great to chat to you. We're going to have to get you back on the starting block when we start doing it remotely as well, but it's really good to finally chat to you in person and sit down and have this conversation. If you don't already, follow Lawmaster on X, that's his X handle. We'll be back in a couple of minutes' time with Efrat Fenixson. If you're in the Bitcoin space, she's one of those podcasters that you probably listen to. Don't run away, we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Starting Block. We've been broadcasting live here at BTC Prague all day, and we're continuing that conversation with Efrat Finningsson. You'll know as a Bitcoin journalist and a podcast host, she's spoken to the biggest names in the industry, and now she's speaking to me. Efrat, it's a great pleasure to finally meet you in person. I've been following you for a long time. I've listened to your podcast, your interviews, but here we are in person. First things first, I don't think it's your first time at BTC Prague, right?
No, it's my third.
It's probably a lot bigger than it was 3 years ago, right?
It's actually more or less the same.
Okay.
Yeah, it's more or less the same. BTC Prague has always been close to like 10,000 people.
Yeah.
And it's attracting people from all over Europe and the world.
Yeah.
I think it's the best conference of Bitcoin throughout the world.
I think so too. I've been to Bitcoin Vegas. I've been to Bitcoin Amsterdam like 5 years in a row. I live in the Netherlands. This just feels different. You know?
I've been to many conferences to date, dozens of them. This is the best one.
Yeah, it's great. Shout out to Martin and Matthias. They're great, and we're really glad that they partnered with the Block to do this live desk as well. It's been really fun just chatting to all the big names in Bitcoin, and some people that I really look up to in the industry. And as a fellow media professional, the same goes for you. Tell us your Bitcoin story, how you got into this.
Right, I got into Bitcoin around 2022. When I was in the streets as an activist, demonstrating and fighting for freedom, and yelling at my government, really. I came from Israel, so I'm a dissident voice to the government and to a lot of things that Israel is doing that I find that we need some criticism of that, especially from within.
Yeah.
And I've been doing that for a couple of years. I have seen a lot of corruption and a lot of scams, a lot of atrocities in and around Israel, and I've been speaking out about it, and I did not know about the monetary scam. I did not know about fiat. And so the largest Bitcoiner in Israel kind of spotted me in the streets because he was following my activism work. And he came over one day and said, how come you don't know anything about Bitcoin? How come you don't use that as one of your freedom tools? And I said, well, I was looking for someone to teach me. Can you be the one? And he said, yeah, for sure. And he did, and shout out to Ben. His name is Ben. And he orange-pilled me. He answered my questions. He helped me do my first transaction. He gave me the Bitcoin Standard book. And from there, I was on my own, on my journey. And I got into the same, I think, sprint or marathon sprint of people getting addicted to Bitcoin. And I did not try any other shitcoin on my journey.
Congrats to you.
I'm a pure Bitcoin maxi because the moment I understood what this is and that the government cannot stop it, I was like, game over. I don't need to search for anything else. And I'm not in this to be rich. I'm in this to have a hedge for my sovereignty and my freedom. So now I just need to go deeper on Bitcoin. I don't need anything else. So that's why. And the other thing was that my ex-husband, I'm divorced, and my ex-husband was paying the child support for our son for many years. And around, I think it was 2017, 18, he was telling me, get some of that Bitcoin so that I can pay you the child support with Bitcoin because we have been doing PayPal. He lives in Australia, and I was in Israel. And he's like, we're paying fees of like 10, 15% every time I give you the child support. If you just have Bitcoin, we'll have zero, you know.
Cut out the middleman.
No one's stealing from us. And I was like, great, can you show me how to do it? He's like, no, I don't know how to tell you how to do it. It's like too hard for him. And I think that's a challenge for many people, that they don't know how to teach other people how to use Bitcoin. It was relatively early back then, but still, I had to wait a few more years until I got it. So that's kind of my story of how I got into it.
I got orange-pilled in 2017 by one of my journalist friends who was freelancing in the industry. And we went and had a coffee the one day, and he was like, do you know what Bitcoin is? This company, Cointelegraph's looking for writers. Would you be keen on doing that? And I was like, I knew what Bitcoin was, but I didn't know much. And my background is in sports broadcasting. I was on radio and television in South Africa. And he sent me my first Bitcoin back in 2017. And then I started working for Cointelegraph, and they paid me in Bitcoin when I first started working for them. So that was really cool. It was like work and get paid in Bitcoin. And, you get orange-pilled in that way, and that's great.
That is fantastic. Earning Bitcoin is one of the best things that you can do. And mining Bitcoin as well. And I think that once I really got it, I was like, wow, this thing is so much bigger than I thought. And you know how we always say, if you want to get Bitcoin, you have to first understand fiat and what the shortcomings or the
Yes.
problems are. And once I did, I was like, okay, now all the other corruptions and scams make so much sense because they're all downstream of fiat.
Yes.
So the health system that is F, and the education and the politics and everything that is corrupt or just like so dishonest is downstream of fiat. So it just, for people like me, for activists, for journalists who are always trying to investigate and trying to make sense of the world, that really helps in building the framework that we need to look at the world in a more truthful way, I think. Yeah.
Do you mind if I ask, like, why do you think it is and I don't want to get too political with this conversation because that's not really what this stream is about, but why are there not more dissident voices in Israel? And the reason I ask that is I'm from South Africa. I wasn't alive, well, I was born in 1991, so I was born basically as apartheid was ending in South Africa, but there were a lot of dissident voices that throughout the apartheid system were very vocal against what was happening in South Africa. And I don't claim to be an expert on, the politics of Israel and Palestine, but it does kind of baffle me a lot of the time that there aren't more activists that are kind of just speaking up more loudly and more Israeli people that aren't just a bit more like, guys, we can't keep going on like this.
Yeah, I think there are three reasons. The first one is there are people who are doing that and speaking out.
Yeah.
There's a language barrier. So Israelis speak Hebrew.
Yeah.
Not all of them are good in English or fluent in English, so they don't create English content on the most part.
Yeah.
The ones that do create English content are mostly working for or with the institutions.
Okay.
So you will see a lot more of that.
Yes.
So there is a population in Israel that is objecting what's happening, but they're quite small and most of their content will be local. So that's one. Two is the propaganda.
Yeah.
I don't know how it was in South Africa, but people in Israel are quite propagandized. There is whole operation, I would say, and this is the kind of stuff that will draw a lot of heat towards me when I say it, but I'll say it anyway, is that there's a lot of orchestrated mind control and propaganda in Israel towards the citizens that keep them in the party lines. It's very hard for them to sway out and to think differently and to criticize because they're very quickly going to be shut down by their peers, by society. So that environment is a very tough environment to pop out of. A little bit like popcorn, when the temperature is right, you'll pop. In Israel, it's kept contained for a very, you're in a pressure cooker, and it's very hard to pop out of that. So I have a lot of compassion for Israelis that do not see things like what other people from outside of Israel see them. It's just very hard when you're under that pressure. And I forgot the third reason.
That's
so
okay.
I guess that's good enough
I
for
think
now.
I think that summed it up well. And
Yeah.
I have quite a few people, especially in our industry, that come from Israel, and that they're all great people.
I remember
and
the last one.
Go ahead.
It's just censorship. Because
Yeah.
once you do decide to speak out, and even if you do it in English, you'll feel the powers stopping you or
Yeah,
trying
for
to
sure.
silence you. It's legit. It's happened to me. It's happening to many other people. So those forces are quite strong, and it's quite hard to carry on in the face of those forces.
Yes.
I do carry on, but I get censored all the time.
Yeah.
I had my Telegram account with 8,000 followers closed overnight with 2 channels that I was running
Wow.
without any explanation
Yeah.
because of my type of content. They
Yeah.
don't like it.
No, that's not. I mean, it comes down to a freedom of speech and control.
Correct. And the
conversation.
CEO of Telegram is pretending to be a hero of free speech, and he's not. They closed
Yeah.
my account. I mean, that's why I'm on Noster. That's why we're looking for alternative solutions that can be not just decentralized, but give me the optionality to hold my own identity in my own hands and not let the state or the government hold my identity for me.
Yeah.
So that's a very important thing when you look at digital sovereignty.
I think a lot of people take it for granted that
Of
we
course
are
they
still
do.
very beholden to the centralized platforms that we use, whether they're
They
communication,
do, and now they're
social
starting
media.
to feel the pressure.
Yeah. For sure.
Because it's happening everywhere. No matter where you are, you think you're in the most enlightened Western democracy in the world. There's no such thing anymore. Everyone's cracking down on your freedoms in every country.
You've had a chance to speak to a lot of Bitcoiners, right? I'm curious your thoughts on the Bitcoin treasury movement, the institutionalization of Bitcoin, as someone who's very much like a freedom advocate from what I can garner. What do you think of that?
So,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think there are two aspects to this. The first aspect is if you look at businesses in general, whether they're small mom and pops businesses or large corporations or institutions, I think it's very healthy for all this spectrum of business world to hold a treasury of Bitcoin.
Yes.
It would not make sense to me that people would understand how harmful the fiat monetary system is and not want to create their own reserve and in their own company to hold the treasury. It's just the best hedge you can have.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I think it's very healthy and it's very beneficial for businesses and companies to start holding their own treasury. Question is, do you then start selling your financial instrument as the next best thing to money?
Yes.
This is the new money. Digital credit is the new money, right? Because that's, and we need to make those distinctions. It's important.
Yes.
When you promote digital credit as money, as the money, the ultimate money, that's the best way of doing money because it's backed by Bitcoin. Me and many other people will look at you and say, but Bitcoin is money.
Yes.
But we have layer twos like Lightning, like Arc, like Cashew, like, there's so many layer 2 solutions that we should, in my opinion, continue to develop and strengthen instead of using fiat backed by Bitcoin, which is exactly where we are now. Fiat was backed by gold and then was, we suffer the consequences of that until today.
Yes.
Why are we going down the same route again? Why aren't we trying to develop Bitcoin to its full potential, which is using it as a medium of exchange, which is doubling down on all those brilliant developers that we have in the industry and utilizing Bitcoin's power as money.
Yeah.
So that's where I stand. And in nature, in the jungle, you have all kinds of creatures and forces and entities growing and fighting and overtaking each other, and that's just natural. So I think what's happening in this ecosystem is also very natural. Mm-hmm. The fact that each entity is doing what it knows how to do best, what it thinks that needs to happen. We cannot stop that, and I am not trying to stop that. It's a waste of my energy, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think Sailor needs to do Sailor. Treasury companies need to do treasury companies. I need to do my freedom thing, the developers need to do what they're good at. We all have to hone in and double down on our full potential. Yeah. And it's not like let the best man win, because it's not a competition. It's like there is a coexistence for all of this in this ecosystem. Yeah. And people will choose what's right for them. And we will see how this industry is shaping up in an organic way based on the market demand, based on the types of technologies that will be developed and then utilized, based on the version of Bitcoin operating system that you want to install on your node. Like you can actually take an active part in deciding what the trajectory of Bitcoin would be. So in many ways, I think Bitcoin is kind of facing an identity crisis, like many of us these days. It's kind of a teenager looking at the mirror, asking itself, what do I want to be when I grow up? Yeah. Who am I? What do I look like? And Bitcoin is a little bit like that, because Bitcoin is a reflection of who we are. Yeah. So each entity or each individual inside a Bitcoin will use Bitcoin differently, will make Bitcoin look like how they want it to look like, and it's all okay. It's all how it should be. So. Yeah.
I think if I've learned anything from like the last 8 or 9 years in this industry, and just conversations with Bitcoiners a lot more knowledgeable than I am, is that you actually don't get to choose how people use Bitcoin, and that's kind of the beauty of it proving its value, is that it's money for people in circular economies. It's pristine capital for companies that are issuing digital credit.
Correct.
And they're not mutually exclusive. They exist at the same time.
It's different things for different use cases or different people, correct?
Yeah, it's very, very powerful. What's next for you? I mean, like, obviously your podcast is going great. You're putting out great content.
Thank you.
Do you want to take things in a very specific direction in the next year or two?
I want to, first of all, I want to say that I'm super grateful for the fact that I get to do this and that I found a community that would actually not just listen to my content, but give me a stage to say what I'm saying. I do not take that for granted. I think that that's quite unique in an environment that is trying to control the narrative so much, that there is some kind of island of sanity called the Bitcoin community, where it's kind of a bubble. You can go into it, you can say what you want to say, you can have plurality of opinions and different views, and it's okay to be like that, to speak differently. It's okay to be different, to think different, and people will accept you. They will not censor you on the most part. So that is very refreshing, and I'm very grateful. So I'll continue to do my public speaking, continue to do my podcast. 150 episodes so far, so I want to get to 200.
Yes. That's an effort.
Yeah, and I'm a mom, so I want to see my son more. And to be honest, as a digital nomad, one of the things I really want is to kind of find the next place that I'm going to settle down in, because it's challenging to keep moving around.
It is.
And I love the warm weather, the tropical areas, so I'm looking forward to being again in Central America this year.
Okay. Well, I hope you find home.
Thank you.
But I think that you're making a difference where it matters as well, and the world needs lots of strong voices, and it needs people to ask questions. Like, that's what I do. That's why people like you do what you do, and I think that the more of us, the better we will all be. So, Efrat, thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us. And if you don't already, please follow her on social media. Go and check out You're the Voice. It's on YouTube, right? It's
on YouTube, it's on Spotify, and it's on X, and I'm on X as well, and on Nostr.
There you go. So for the Bitcoiners out there on Nostr, go and find her there as well. We've got one more interview coming up. We've got Mate from Trezor. He's the CEO, to talk about the origins of Bitcoin in Prague, to talk about self-custody, to talk about Trezor. Keep it locked here. We'll just be taking a very, very short break. Welcome back to the starting block. We're broadcasting for the last time on day 2 at Bitcoin Prague, BTC Prague rather. We're joined by Danny Sanders. He is the Chief Commercial Officer at Trezor. And Trezor is one of the most influential companies in the Bitcoin space. And if it wasn't for Trezor, we wouldn't have things like mnemonic seed phrases. So we're going to get into all of that and more in this conversation. Danny, it's great to chat to you. First things first, tell us a little bit about how you got into Bitcoin before we get into the Trezor story.
Yeah, awesome. So thanks for having us, Gareth, and thanks for being here in BTC Prague, our hometown. So my story is, I think, quite similar as many people who came into the space. It's mostly initially like, okay, there's like some speculation happening, and you try some stuff out, and like it goes up or down. It's mostly some altcoins, and then you think you're very good at it, and then you get more and more into it, and then everything crashes like 80 or 90%. And then you start studying deeper Bitcoin. That was kind of my path, where you realize the differences, like what it truly means to be decentralized. And then I got basically in the rabbit hole. So I really started to read up a lot about it, go deeper and deeper, and built a lot of convictions actually in bear markets. So that's kind of stick with me all this time. And it's what got me also staying in the industry and why I wanted to work in the industry.
Yeah. Prague is like a bit of a spiritual home for Bitcoin in a number of ways. There's a handful of companies that did a huge amount of foundational work for Bitcoin, and Trezor is one of them. For the block audience out there that might not know much about Trezor and its history, can you just give us a brief TLDR?
Absolutely. They say Bitcoin or Prague is the Bitcoin city, I would say, of the world. Why is that so? Like, a lot of this stuff has to do with our founders, Stick and Slush. They originally started the hardware wallet industry, so that's like number one feat, the first hardware wallets in the world. And after that, you saw like a whole industry of hardware wallets popping up. But they have done a lot more. So, for example, the 24 or 12 words BIP39 mnemonic words has been also invented by them.
Yeah.
They have been big contributors to Bitcoin codes. The first mining pool, so like the slush pool it was called at the time, so with Stick and Slush, so
Yeah.
is also created here. So you have a lot of these big foundational changes in the space that has all been born here, and that has been created by the founders who also built Trezor. And I think there's like some history behind it as well. If you look at Czech people, they have a long history with communism and like independent thinkers and no bullshit people.
Yeah.
And I think this is like syncs really well with the Bitcoin thesis as well. So that kind of matches up.
Let's talk about the product, right? I mean, for those that don't use a hardware wallet and don't really understand the difference between custody and self-custody, can you tell us why it's important to take control of your assets first and foremost, and why it's probably a good thing to trust the right hardware wallet as well?
Yeah, so absolutely. So I think just one step back, if you think about the total industry, crypto industry, I don't know, maybe 600 million users.
Yeah.
And then those that self-custody, maybe 50, 60 million users.
Wow.
And then those that do hardware wallets, maybe 12, 13 million users. So like there's the whole funnel.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's actually surprisingly still a small part of the total, which is something, of course, like we are here, like we're self-custody maxis, right? So why do you need it? Well, we believe that this is like the thing that makes Bitcoin also truly unique, which makes also Bitcoin and crypto in total truly unique, like you truly own your assets. The disintermediation of third parties. If you put your Bitcoin on an exchange, you basically don't own your assets, and you kind of replicate the old system.
Yeah.
So self-custody, I think, is the purest form of expressing why we are here, and that's why we are about. We are here to support the people who want to do that, and then why a hardware wallet is basically to do it securely.
Yeah.
Because you can self-custody in a software wallet, but like, it's connected to the internet, it's connected to the online, all your apps. So we are like securing your private keys in a fully offline way that you can feel safe, and then basically only when you need to interact You sign it off in a very safe way. Your transactions, you can do everything, in purely self-custodial, but the most secure way possible.
Yeah. When it comes to onboarding people, I mean, like even when I got my hands on one of your wallets, you know, like I found it amazing that your team was like, hey, we can actually get a consultant on that can talk you through the entire process. And I think that that's still one of the hard pieces of the puzzle, is that everyone wants Bitcoin, but a lot of people don't want the responsibility of Bitcoin, or they want the freedom that Bitcoin gives you, but they're not willing to accept the responsibilities that come with individual freedom. And it's the same thing as like having a gold bar that you want to use to store value. If you have that gold bar and you don't want to put it in a bank deposit, you want to keep it at your house, you need to have a very good safe, and maybe you need to arm yourself so that if someone wants to come and break into your house, you know, you can defend yourself and defend your property. That's a responsibility. The same thing goes with a hardware wallet. The difference being that you need to set it up in a certain way. You either need to remember the seed phrase or back it up in a very secure way so that you can't lose custody of the assets. But if you do, you lose your Bitcoin forever, and that's a huge burden. And I'm sure it's something that the team has thought about at length for years and years. I mean, you've got the metal seed phrase backups and those kind of things, but I still think that the hardest part of self-custody is getting people to understand how to do it right and do it well, and then just accept the responsibility that comes with it. How do you guys tackle that?
Yeah, so I think one step back maybe. So I think there's a lot of fear, but once you do it, it's not that hard.
Yeah.
And this is probably the biggest mental blocker. It's like, it sounds so scary, but it's actually not. I think, you know, over the years, the whole onboarding flow has been made so much easier. And like it is, you know, it talks you through every single step. It is like very, like it's not prone for error that much, like it's really perfected. But we can improve it further, like specifically with technology. But I think it's a lot of the mental blocker, like it's very scary or it's very difficult, is more like untrue to some extent.
Yeah.
But it's still the thing we need to work with and deal with. But like it's not that complicated anymore. However, like it is a lot about education and like trying to explain why it's important as well. But then moreover, yeah, exactly like the fear of really managing your own keys is not something we're used to.
Yeah.
Like I have my bank, I do the email and the password, maybe some 2FA, that's already scary for some, I guess. So like it's mostly like mental, the mental model.
Yeah.
We're so used to the Web 2 model that we're like, this ownership scares us. So like we work through a few different things on like how to make it easier. You know, the expert, treasure expert is one of them, like basically in a very safe environment where somebody talks you through the process, where you can feel secure that you're doing it the right way. This is one of them. But also like the specific fear of losing your keys. So we have already for quite some time like multi-share backup, which basically allows you to do the backup through like 2 out of 3. Basically you have 3 pieces of paper and you just, you know, put them in 3 different locations. And basically allows you that there's no longer a single point of failure. So if you have a water flood or your house burns down, or unfortunately if somebody like physically attacks you, like you basically cannot give them at the point that you're not able to give them the full key. So
Yeah.
this is like something we have for some time, but I think there's still like blockers of like the whole process, also writing down the words, that we are like continuously improving. So we're working even also like on more solutions to make that smoother and easier. And I think as the whole industry keeps on focusing on like improving these tools, I think the goal is to actually match the Web 2 experience over time.
Yeah.
We're not there yet, but I think that's the hardest thing that we all need to keep on focusing on, and not like saying, okay, let's just put it in an ETF. That's kind of like the worst outcome, I think, for the industry to do.
It is the worst outcome, I think, especially if you want to maintain that ethos of Bitcoin. I've found it very interesting, the evolution of hardware wallets as well. Like they're getting more and more like a smartphone, right? And like, I guess that's just the directionality of technology. How does your team kind of balance that, like simplicity versus technology and design and user experience. Everyone wants something new and shiny, but at the end of the day, you actually just need to safeguard your Bitcoin. How do you guys balance that up?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. We talk about this almost every day. So I think if you look at the landscape of hardware wallets, you see very different approaches. You see like hardcore, like security maxing, basically.
Yeah.
And you see like on the other side, the most user-friendly, where you don't even have a screen, for example, right? So like we are like in the middle there. So we try to balance both. We don't believe you should go full on like let's say an example like air gapping, this kind of stuff. Like it sounds really nice, like it sounds very logical that this is the most secure, but basically you're still transferring data and you still have to trust that data.
Yeah.
And the UX gets kind of bad and it's not easy anymore. So it's kind of more scary.
Yeah.
It's exactly for those people who are scared, like, you need to be more advanced for that. And on the other side, if you go so much deep on the usability front and you don't even think about a screen anymore, that's maybe a step too far.
Yeah.
Because ultimately you need to be able to verify and secure exactly what you're signing in a very trusted and secure environment. So we find ourselves in this continuous balance of the two, and trying to manage it in a way that it is as easy to use. You have a beautiful touchscreen with some haptic feedback that like shows you the full information in like with a lot of pixels, right? And it gives you the feeling that, and it gives you the security of like secure elements and like in a really like consumerized way, where it does feel like your iPhone basically.
Yeah.
So users feel very familiar. They have like enough screen size and something they actually think. It's kind of up to date, right? So that's where we find ourselves, and then we realize that having great design, beautiful screens, actually really makes it very comfortable for people to use it. It helps a lot with the usability. It gives us more opportunities with great UI, and it's very well accepted.
I think when it comes to like the competition in the hardware wallet space, there's a fair amount of it, right? And I don't know the numbers because I haven't done the research, but I would imagine that Ledger is probably your biggest competitor. And they also, they hired like an ex-Apple sort of, a designer to build some of their products so that they have that really like polished smartphone feel. Do you look a lot at what other people are doing in the industry? Or is Trezor overall kind of just comfortable that, man, like, we made this industry, so everyone's still emulating what we're doing?
Yeah, so I think you always look at your competition. I think it's impossible not to do, but it's important to have your own vision and execute on it on your own path.
Yeah.
So let's say we don't do flashy sports team sponsorship. We don't do flashy collaborations with really fantastic people and nothing to. But like, I honestly believe we have the best product on the market, the best design, the best balance between security and usability.
Yeah.
With like real innovation, also on the hardware level, with an open and auditable secure element chip, with I would say like fully open source, right, solutions, which is our like we're really focused on like transparency and openness and auditability. So I think we are able to deliver the best out there on our own path.
Yeah.
And if I look at the competition, I think it's basically there are 3 brands that have caught mainstream attention and awareness.
Yeah.
And that is Ledger and Trezor and Tangent. Let's be honest, they also like have a lot of users now.
Yeah.
And then there's like a long tail of smaller brands that fit really nice niches.
Yeah.
And they do really good job. But like it's hard to break through. You have to like really have a huge like supply chain. It's hardware. It's hard. It's a lot of upfront cost to build a hardware wallet, to invest in the people, to find the right partners to work with. So there's quite some moat around the hardware wallet space. If you don't use a screen, it's quite easy. You just use a card.
Precisely.
It costs you $2 to make. It's not a big deal. But if you do it like properly, with I think the best balance between security and usability, it's quite hard. You see, we're 12 years in,
Yeah.
and it's still like, it's not like a Samsung or a Sony came in and built the same thing. That has to do with the size of the market, but it also has to do with like, it's kind of a, I always say don't trust us, because trust the code, trust what we do, but it is trust. We're basically selling some trust at the same time.
For sure.
And over time, you earn the trust. If you're 10 years, 12 years in, and user funds have never been lost, ultimately that's really hard to copy. And that's kind of a big moat in the space.
That's
Even to double down on that, like we have open source code. You know, in the beginning, also the hardware wallets have open schematics. Everybody can build their own. We had many competitors building hardware wallets based on our software and on our hardware schematics, and ultimately we still came out.
They say imitation is the best form of flattery.
Yes.
My final question to you, like there's always people asking questions like when's Michael Saylor gonna, you know, put out a proof of reserves? And I kind of wonder, like, is all that Bitcoin sitting on a Trezor hardware wallet in a safe somewhere, you know? What's your relationship like with institutions, and do you think huge amounts of Bitcoin are being safeguarded with your kind of hardware?
Like, I'm proudly saying we don't care.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm proudly saying we don't have an institutional strategy.
Yeah, okay.
We are here, we have a very strong mission and vision, which is like empower the independence of the individuals. We are here for the retail, right?
Beautiful.
This is Bitcoin Prague here. A lot of people are buying hardware wallets because they are like individuals who want to secure their wealth, and that's why we're here for. So we don't want to jump from left to right. Like now institutions are hot. Now we need to sell them products. We want to have a very focused strategy on that. Yeah. But I can tell you, talking to some of these partners who work with institutions, I talked to some of the biggest today as well, they do use Trezor hardware wallets. Ultimately, at the end of the chain, they have to secure it somehow.
Yes.
And I think they're even enforced by regulation to have cold wallets.
Yeah.
So it is actually still used.
Yeah.
Even in those spaces, they use Trezor and Ledger hardware wallets.
Yeah. It was probably 2 years ago, I went to Zappa Bank's Swiss Bitcoin bunker, which was really interesting. I mean, obviously it's a Swiss bunker where people are safeguarding all sorts of things, you know, classified documents, precious metals, everything. I wasn't told what else was in the vault, but we went to Zappo's little room, and it's literally like a server inside a room, and it's an MPC shard, you know. So that's one way where a big custodian that actually takes custody of your Bitcoin is looking after it, and it's an impressive operation. But at the end of the day, you're trusting a custodian, and yeah, I think from my perspective as a Bitcoiner, you should, as an individual, if you want to acquire Bitcoin, take it into self-custody, learn what it means to look after your Bitcoin, and go through the necessary education to do that and do it well. But Danny, thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us, and just thank you to the Trezor team, because actually, if it wasn't for you guys, we probably wouldn't have been here at BTC Prague. You guys got the conversation going for us to kind of partner up with Martin and Matthias on being a live stream partner. So thank you. Thank you for the amazing hardware wallets as well, because I'm a proud user. If you're interested in a Trezor hardware wallet, just Google it, you'll find it. I'm sure if you just Google a Bitcoin hardware wallet, it'll be the first thing that comes up as well. If you enjoyed the live stream today, please like and retweet. We will be back tomorrow with our final live stream tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. We've got some fantastic guests joining us. My most sort of exciting conversation that I think I'm looking forward to is Giovanni, who on X you can find at BTC Power Law. Fascinating conversation that we'll have tomorrow morning. So please set a reminder, join us tomorrow right here online on the Blocks platforms on X or YouTube. Join us at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, Central European time. We'll be back for the final day of BTC Prague. Thank you very much for watching. We'll catch you tomorrow.